Tonight, joining me at the Science on the Square event is Sarah Leichter, and she is a fourth-year student in the genetics program. We have a couple questions for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, please ask away.
Awesome. What does your science journey look like?
So I actually had a kind of really interesting science journey. So I studied biology in undergrad, but I was really interested in like large scale biology, like ecology and studying like forests and ecosystems and evolution. But I took more and more molecular biology classes and genetics and biochemistry. And I got really, really interested in like DNA and like genetics and like biochemistry and just how these things function on the cellular level and how important they are for like composing and like changing and showing differences in the organism and how they kind of can have a really profound effect on the organism itself at such a small level going large. So I think I kind of went the opposite direction. And so because of this, I wanted to, this interest, I sought out different opportunities while I was in undergrad to get as much experience as I could and like be able to see what kind of studying the science is like. So it's, I've always found it to be very interesting in science that saying what you do and doing it feels a lot different. So my first really big experience happened in college. I had a job at a biotech company where I was able to do some like molecular analysis of plants. And from that point, I got like hooked and I really wanted to continue to study molecular mechanisms and regulation of genes. And so I then, after I graduated, got a position in a lab as a assistant researcher where I performed a lot of like big experiments on the human genome and was able to piece apart these different mechanisms that are involved in stress response. And so the response to stress and the epigenetic response, which is modifications that are on top of the genome that change how the cell interprets the DNA without changing the DNA itself. So it's kind of like if you have a chocolate cake and you put vanilla icing on it, it now tastes different than just the chocolate cake itself. But you could take the vanilla icing off and put chocolate icing and it will taste different, it will look different than the vanilla icing, but still a chocolate cake. And so the icing is these epigenetic modifications and they can change based on different stimuli. And so through that job, I knew I wanted to get more experience and more training as a scientist, hopefully become a professor in a lab much similar to one at Wisconsin someday. So I joined the genetics program here at UW-Madison and joined a lab that studies these epigenetic modifications in plants. And I study kind of what regulates the putting on of these modifications, which is modulated by a group of enzymes. And so enzymes are just proteins that do work. And so these proteins, they have to be regulated to know where and when to add these modifications. And so through my work, this is what I now study. And so this is kind of very briefly how I got here.
And when was the moment that you knew you wanted to be a scientist?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like it was in my high school AP biology class. I had this awesome teacher who just like really drew up the enthusiasm and excitement for just studying biological life. And she just did such a great job of explaining and showing the importance of these things that I was like, I can't imagine studying anything else. Like this is my favorite thing. I want to study science for the rest of my life. And that was further validated through the experiences that I had in college and then after college and in grad school. I love being able to like learn more about the like world around us, because it's so fascinating and complex, and it's really interesting where you like at this point I'm 4 years into my PhD. I feel like I don't know a lot, because I mean, I know things, but like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, because every door you open leads you to 4 more closed doors. And it's just learning more and going through those doors. It's fascinating to me. I just, I love what I do, and it's so much fun to do that. Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. Like, oh, the farther along you go in science, the more you realize that there is to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you started kind of learning about big things in biology, and you kind of worked your way down. And what is the reason you are now have focused on studying epigenetics?
So I wanted to study epigenetics because of the dynamics of it. So it's not something that's permanent on the genome. I think the ability for it to change and allow the organism to adapt is really interesting. And also, it's one of the newer fields in the world of biology. And so there's a lot unknown, and there's a lot of new doors to open that gives different opportunities to understand things that can then be further down to understanding how to like aim precision medicine and treat people on an individual level to their certain specific ailments, also down to specific precision agriculture, which is a new buzzword of like how we're going to create or adapt crops to produce more healthy and nutritious food in such a changing wild environment. And so I think the amount of opportunity there is in the field of epigenetics is what really drew me into it. And the fact that there's so many fluctuating components of it is what's super fascinating to me. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And when you're not in the epigenetics research lab doing your work, what are your favorite things to do in Madison?
Oh, I love biking and running around Madison. My favorite things are to run around the bike paths and specifically when it's nice out, bike down to some of the bars. Like I love some of the breweries. I love some of the coffee shops downtown, Collectivo and Grace Coffee, some of my favorites. I like biking down to the Old Fashioned, get some cheese curds, a little treat. And I really love biking around the lakes. There's so much greatness like to do outside of Madison, and like so many interesting things downtown that I find myself like working really hard in the lab so that I can go out and treat myself and enjoy being in such an awesome city.
Cool. Are there any parting words you want to leave us with before we end the little chat?
Just that scientists we're real people. Like I mean, most people, like, I don't know, Hollywood or TV shows, they paint us out to be like, I don't know, these crazy weird geniuses, but we're just normally, we like to like hang out, drink coffee. There's many things we don't know, but there are many things we do know. And so you never know who you're going to run into downtown. So maybe just start talking to people. You might run into one of the many, many scientists who live in the area.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thanks so much for joining us tonight at the Science on the Square event. We're so glad we got to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you. It was awesome getting to chat.